Okay, so thank you for coming to my presentation. That presentation will be in two parts. First one, we'll talk about content migration. I'll give you some checklist things to do if you want to migrate content to new Drupal 8. And the second one, we'll talk about how to innovate with Drupal. So when you get there, what things you can do to make your platform, website, or any solution you build better. So my name is Greg Paluch. I am also known as Grzesiek. And my accent suggests that I know a little bit about migration. I came to US from Poland, where I was born. I'm a Drupal developer, and I also, for the last 15 years, get involved a lot in startup community, build startups for myself or with other people. The minimum success, minimum goal for the migration is to not lose the traffic of existing site and don't frustrate new users. Users with the change, and also what is sometimes missed during the transition is the focus of what actually business trying to achieve with that migration, because we as developers focus a lot on solving the problems, and then business had their own problems, not always relate to actual, to the work of the developer. So I put this Einstein quote to make this presentation more solid because he's a big name there. But what he talks about about preparation and spend more time on preparation than actually solving it. But my experience is that I do a lot of analysis paralysis and start with break, and you have to just move forward and to avoid this test often. So let's go to the list. First, check, analyze your data. How the website is currently behaving. Then move to the user behavior. If you are new to the project, there are certain paths that every website platform has, and then learn from that how actually users use it. And if you know the platform for many years, you can skip this. You should know this by now. And for the things you don't know, do split testing. Also, ask your customer, ask you about the complaints that user had. And then we go to the point when, check that what's the current stack, what's the server database, what you need to do to move the files. In older sites, there is a lot of files that were collected on the server over the years, and not everything needs to be moved. And ask yourself, after deploying it, what's the current development workflow? What's how the change is implemented on the site, if you can improve something there. And benchmarking. Please don't do benchmarking because it can be used against you in the future. So client have evidence if you do something wrong. But honestly, do benchmarking, because if you get to problems, you can solve them faster. It will help you understand what goes wrong, what went wrong with your migration. And so check the traffic. Every company has their own KPIs they go with, so check them and make sure you understand them. Page load speed is a big thing to definitely look for, and identify and optimize SEO data. So the next step, keyword ranking. see what works and check what doesn't work. So label the stuff that works so you don't break anything during the transition. And there are some goals you can already, the average Google expect your page load speed be 2 seconds. So if it's anything below, put it on the list of improvements. And align technology. If you move during the inside the Drupal universe, going from 6, 7, check if you have available models in Drupal 8, if they are already in a stage when you can put them in production. Check hosting. The only thing, from my experience, deploying to Drupal 8, looking at the hosting is the change in the configuration workflow. Not all the hosting companies provide ready-to-go solutions, so might dig a little bit deeper. And if the site has third-party integrations, see if they already supported in Drupal 8, or maybe you need to allocate budget to implement them. Things like payments, gateways, those things sometimes not ready in Drupal 8. And non-migration issue, there is, in this step, you pretty much go to Drupal.org, and if you put this exactly keyword, that will be first page in Google search, and go through this and see where we are at. Security. A lot of new sites that I've been working with, adding a commerce component to existing sites. Check if for the PCI compliance, if the solution you're building will match that. Will be different for the sites that don't have any commerce components. And the last things, very obvious, check all the features if you can match them in the with new solution. I'm a very unorganized person, so I need things like spreadsheets to help me to go through all the things that I need to do. And I usually create 2 spreadsheets, one with the problems and solutions that I need to work with, and the second one is with the list of pages that and to do on those pages. Things like, so we don't lose a conversion on these pages. Another things to look for, especially from very old sites, check the URL architecture and use subdomain carefully. This is very obvious stuff. Make the URL looks like close to this category, subcategory, and primary keyword. And the shorter the better. Other things. One example is a lot of sites that I work with have block and separate, and then when I look now on the conversion that actually compete with their own block in some sense, so it's better to just use the first one, mysite.com/blog, instead of doing subdomain. Okay, so site optimizations. For a lot of developers, this is obvious stuff, so just I'm gonna go quickly to this, but over time, that will be a lot of stuff that is not optimized that you can look and check the title tags for the WYSIWYG sites. Using WYSIWYGs, check if the structure is the way it's supposed to be. Meta description, images, which correlate very often to page load speed, and see what content you can combine together, what content you can optimize, and especially remove the redundant content, because it's very bad for SEO. And going to Drupal, there's a lot of good tools to make make easy to create structured data on your site, and this is huge things, huge improvement. If you don't do this already, please take a look. And for the multilingual sites, make sure you have the structure, it's optimized, and if you okay, one thing to consider, but that's not going to apply to all the sites, but maybe you want to use accelerated mobile pages. Google loves them, and there is projects that help with that, AMP. When you do all this movement on the site, please check, if you didn't break any links, and I'm sure there will be some. So fix all those 404s, and when you do redirects from the pages you work on, make sure it's just the one redirect. There is no multi-redirection, and the tools you can use, and I use sometimes. And after you're done with this, make sure that that the universe is still linking to your site, and after the changes. Okay, and this is very obvious step, but add sitemap and make sure that it's set up correctly, because the new pages that you will add not always are accessible right away for Google, so sitemap helps to get them very quickly, the crawlers to get them very quickly. Tools that I'm using and I recommend, Screaming Frog, very good for looking at your site from a crawler's perspective, so you can get key data to analyze what's wrong. SEMrush, Google Web Tools. SEMrush has a lot of good SEO tools. Google Web Tools help you understand what you're doing wrong and improve the site structure in general. Moz, I use it very often to just get updated my knowledge about what's changed. The one thing sometimes it's missed that if you're doing on the larger sites and longer projects, hide your development site, dev sites from crawlers, and you don't want to have duplicated content in the Google index. So this is module that helps that, and I'm pretty much deploying on every project I do. But you can also do this via robots.txt and just put this in your document. And also, if you want to go on a per page basis, you can use meta tags and just add the index. And this module is also helpful to hide pages like login pages, or part of the sites you don't want crawlers to go to. Okay, security. Remember, I mean, that's obvious, but we sometimes get in the work and we forget that we're still working with the user data, and make sure this is one of the ways on the dev site, if it's not updated or if you have things moving around, just make sure that this site is updated, so there is no data breach, and wipe all the data from the database when you're working on it, and just put the data right before it goes live. Okay, so this is very brief, very approach to. I mean, I went very briefly on how to move the content, but so in the 6 steps, you can go and launch your new websites, and then I have 40 more minutes. I have to talk something about it. So I want to go to the second part of the presentation about how we can innovate with Drupal. And to start, it's from organization perspective, migration is really not any organization really wanted to do, and it's either business or university. There's no one like this. either migration or changing, and because it's a really painful transition, and most of the time business already is running in the full capacity, and if you are a developer hired to do those, or you're asking for the extra, for their extra effort to move things forward. And so how to do this in a longer terms, how to convince organization that that there is another way, and not just waiting for the migration and stop everything and wait until the site goes old again. So you can, I mean, this is very common terms in the business, continuous innovation. I mean, everybody talks about it, and it's very popular, but it's really not many organizations do that in a daily basis. They don't have that approach, and because it's risky, and it's easy to get fired if you innovate too much, because things can go wrong. And an organization itself doesn't have the mindset for innovation. But if you look on that global innovation index, if you look a few years ahead, you can, I mean, this is one way of selling innovation to the company, just looking in the index that overall market of the economic growth is going down, but the index suggests that R&D budgets are raising up. I think there is the pressure to be innovative and to move forward, even though that market is might not do very well in a short future. So I know that doesn't seem like the right fit here, but I want to tell you a little bit about the law of conservation of attractive profits, which is, I intentionally put that in yellow so you don't have to read this. But what it says, it tells that modular stuff must surround integrated stuff to optimize the integrated stuff. And in 3 steps, so any innovation starts with a company that, the pioneer company that introduced some innovation to the market. And it takes, and bring that innovation to the market. Then with the time that innovation becomes well understood and become modular and commoditized. And so the competition goes in with a little bit less knowledge and start assembling that innovation and to produce another entities. To give you an example of this, I use AT&T when they invented, I mean, not really invented, but when they developed 3G network, it allows to Apple to build their iPhone. Because without that network, without the speed of this network, there will be Apple will be really just a smaller computer. And moving forward in time, when the iPhone becomes so popular, the app developers realize that it's a huge market there, and they start building apps. And then Google, like other big players, join in and create maps, for example, that are available on an iPhone. And so all this, looking at the that law suggests that the profits are not just static for the company. They the things move around, and as the market grows for the apps or the Google Maps usage grow, it creates actually, using more bandwidth and create more users for AT&T, and AT&T profit on this. So the profit goes back to AT&T or goes down to AT&T in this graph. And But the most important things in this graph is to show you that there is that shifting between different stages of that transition. So we're moving from expert phase to commodity phase. And then we're going to expert phase again, and then moving to commodity phase. So all those things that are built through the years are actually not very, they don't move like a linear way. They go ups and downs. And in the beginning, it's usually the expert mode. There is really not many, the market is small. And the same things, the other things, with this movement of profits, it allows AT&T to become expert in the next invention, because it's 3G network is already well accepted, well used, and we need another step. So then we go to another phase when we hopefully build this 5G network soon to the scale that allows us to, for example, do things like virtual reality over the phone and or whatever device that will be. And the same law works for our for open source, and it's so with the invention of Drupal 7 or 5, 6, 7, it's developers and agencies are able to create e-commerce solutions, help government to be more efficient, and those investments relates to sponsoring that's coming back to Drupal, and or the developer contributions in many different ways. I mean, it's 49% of sponsoring, it's come from actually organizations in Drupal community, and also we go through the same phases, and from expert to commodity, and we need to move forward. And so why I'm talking about all this, where we get to the Drupal 8, because this law explains a lot of things that happen actually in Drupal community, a lot of tools, or it explains also why, for example, WordPress, has such a huge market versus Drupal, and the low-end disruption that is caused by this law created a company like Wix, GoDaddy, and Squarespace that actually goes to the market, because it's not anymore expert market, but it's become just community, and people look for cheaper, easier ways of doing things. And so I put those notes. Maybe if you're gonna get back to this later, you can read them. But you know, like how often we hear this, complaint that this product is too complicated when you start working on Drupal, or that's a common thing. But and there's a lot of discussion why Drupal respond this way or another, and which direction we should go. But if we're looking from this perspective, what comes next? You can skip this one. What comes next? It's really shifting the markets. So let's talk a little about the Drupal Innovation Toolbox. So Drupal 8 really comes with a lot of great tools that you can use to build great things. The big change is the Composer. It's a dependency management that you can manage libraries. Drupal is built on Symfony, so a lot of PHP developers that are coming to Drupal will be familiar with a lot of concepts. It uses configuration management. It makes development process easier, and moving configurations between your production, development or test environments. The multi-site architecture, this is really more as a Drupal thing, and it's for many solutions that's very helpful. And Another thing, APIs first initiatives, it will help, and it's helping connect Drupal to the other applications that are out there. You can connect pretty much Drupal to anything that talks HTTP things. You can connect to SMS frameworks or connect native apps that use Drupal on the background for managing data. And big thing, the coupled Drupal, it's all because of that approach. And I think it will improve in a short future to the point when Drupal become the platform to connect all these applications together. So for those focused on the editorial needs, there is a lot of improvement in Drupal 8 versus older version. So we have flyer builder in the core. I recently tried its production ready, the Gutenberg, which thank you for WordPress. We just took this from them and implemented in Drupal, and it's really great. You need to try this, and web forms, workflow, and the JavaScript initiative. Hopefully in a short future, we will have very friendly admin and editing user interface. And things, the toolbox, if you site use heavy presentation and data, I mean, those things you can check it out, media suits, charts, that helps you connect any libraries that use charts. And for a lot of data, Search API, Solar. Okay, so let's get back to the innovation. If you want to introduce innovation to the company, to the client, or to your own team, you need to go deeper in the problems. And I mean, this is very obvious because it's all about problems. But when you're developing in Drupal, I give you an example. Jakub Rokowicz, he is main contributor of Webform module. I know he was working for a hospital, and he developed and started building on the Webform module. And because he was trying to solve problems to his hospital, as we know that hospitals doesn't, they in the process of digitalizing all the medical records, and and he put a lot of work in that module, and now there are hundreds, thousands of different organizations using this, actually doing these things. So when at some point he started looking at the problem in the broader perspective, and he was, and it's hard to see that problem in the very beginning when you start giving back to the Drupal, but over the time you see the impact, and it's really make the big change. So also, if you have, if you're looking how to innovate, look for trends. I mean, everybody knows about e-commerce growing, but the data suggests that that trend will go for next 10, 15 years. So, like things like passive loyalty, people switch between brands very easily, and that's influence also how you build things, how you do marketing for the client, or for the, how you can do marketing through your platform that you're building. So one thing that I'm mostly interested in, and I think that's like big opportunity to watch, is the rise of artificial intelligence and machine learning. I think, I'm convinced that Drupal will be a great fit for all those things that will be built. And this opportunity now, it's in the expert phase, so there's not really many tools for that for the low-end market. But I think Drupal could help with this transition, and And the advantage we have over too fast. The advantage we have over other platforms is the security. Drupal is one of the most secure platforms there. WordPress, there's a lot of data that is available in WordPress, and they are not. It looks like, in my opinion, that security will be a big issue in coming years, and there are already signals of that in the news when sites get crashed. Like a lot of businesses just don't care much about it because they don't see that much value in this data. But as we move forward, and we use this data to AI, which produce a lot of data that is that just can't be stolen, or there will be big consequences, financial consequences for the companies if that breach will happen. So I think in this way, Drupal is well prepared for what is coming. And if that's something in your neighborhood, please take a look. And so in summary, to summarize that, looking back in the history of Drupal, I think there is a lot of, there is few people that come from Drupal, but they are upset, and it looks like Drupal abandoned, bloggers or small sites, creators, but I think overall it's not because of the top decisions to go different direction, but it's, as I try to show you here, with the economy is pushing forward Drupal different directions, and at some point business will need to catch up and look for different solutions that are more in expert mode than just easy to use. And yes, easy is good, but if your business is transitioning, you will be focused on the tool that help you do complicated stuff that give you advantage, not only is easy to use. So key points. Try to convince your clients about doing innovating stuff. And if you do convince them, do innovate fast, but introduce the innovation slowly, so you don't scare clients of. And last things, easy is not. Easy is good, but it's much harder to make profit, sustainable profit with easy solutions, and maybe it's time to upgrade not upgrade, but to move as the market changes will force, for especially smaller business to do more innovative things, because big corporations are very efficient in actually going to the small markets, and a lot of small markets just disappear over the year or two. So those people might look at you as a developer to actually help them to sustain and be innovative. And yeah, so that, I think that will summarize my thank you very much. And I don't know if you have any questions. No. Okay, I think I'm a little bit early. So, if you don't have questions, how do you think? Can you tell me a little bit how? I don't know what you're doing. Are you developers or your how your organization introduce innovation? Like, what's you can share maybe what's how that looks in your organization? Do you agree even what I said? I mean, a lot of this conversation comes because from me trying to understand, okay, is really Drupal a good fit for me? What I'm gonna do with Drupal in 5 or like 2, 3, 4, 5 years, and if that's really the environment that I want to build my business on. So that's why I start digging in those, see some numbers and see if that makes sense, and or should I learn WordPress and maybe do this? So I'm curious, what's your takes on innovation in your organization?
I think I work at Warner Media, and for us, innovation is important. A lot of what we're doing is decoupling sites to innovate, and so being able to put React with things like that is what's keeping it from becoming obsolete.
Yeah. Okay, so I mean, I know that's using Drupal a lot, and so do you have any other solution that you might look, or you think that Drupal is a good fit for you?
For right now, it seems to be working for us. So I'm not particularly the person to make this.
Yeah.
When you say you're decoupling sites, you're taking a site where everything's combined into the same code base, the same database, and you're separating that out to 2 different sites that are maintained distinctly, I assume.
Yes, I believe so. I work on a core team, so my team doesn't actually maintain a site, so I don't work directly with any of our sites.
So what's the role of React in all of that?
React makes a prettier and more reactive front end for the user, generally.
So it's a JavaScript kind of.
Yes.
All right. Okay, thank you very much for listening.